Great. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome you to the regular meeting of the Milwaukie Planning Commission. Agendas and additional copies of staff reports are available on the city website at www.milwaukieoregon.gov. You may locate them by navigating to the community calendar where tonight's meeting page is posted. If you have not already reviewed the agenda, please do so. It contains important information about the process. Our first order of business is our native lands acknowledgement. Oh, hi, Josh. I see your hand raised. Okay, great. And we can hardly hear you as well.
Is that a TV mute thing?
How?
Maybe not.
Ooh.
No, Commissioner Freeman, we're trying to sort this out.
Yeah, it is. It's fine on those ones, but these ones, it's a little brighter.
That's good. Yeah, that's not bad.
Is that feedback?
This one. I think so. Or this one is muted.
So the main IT stuff has already moved over there. So this is kind of, they've been for like a month or so, they've been testing and doing a kind of a temporary
Yeah.
thing, so there could be some bumps.
Or lots
I
of
thought
bumps,
this was a-
depending on how many
I thought this was
echoes
supposed to be
there
muted.
are.
We're getting feedback either way on this one, or not with this. I don't know if it's any better with this. I think there's still a little bit of echo with that. So the volume on the TVs.
Justin, you need to turn these in somewhere.
It muted.
Just give them to Laura.
I don't know that I remember what Ryan did last
Here.
time. Oh, it was a TV problem. I think so, yeah.
Thanks for your patience online as we work through these technical difficulties.
Well, if I mute this, can we still hear people?
My optometrist told me these weren't reading glasses, but
They'll have to do. They're reading glasses.
just like, what's just getting old.
My brother got glasses like 18 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I probably needed these when I was 18.
Imagine that. Settling in nicely.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty good. It's been a busy summer.
You've only been there this spring?
Since February. Yeah.
Commissioner Freeman, can you hear us?
Work around the house?
Sounds great.
A little
Thanks,
bit
Justin.
trying to. Right now it's just like keeping up with weeding. The worst thing ever. Yeah, exactly. Basically already given up. Yeah.
I can't control the microphone on this
Yeah.
to take it down.
Is this any better? I mean,
Second.
Josh, can you hear us?
Near the Milwaukee.
You can. I see your lips moving, but we can't hear you. But there's no echo in the room now.
For that one, you just need to
So they can, you You all can hear us now, but we can't hear you.
Can you, yeah,
Yes.
okay, great.
Okay. Did you hear that? They can hear us.
They are still being broadcast though.
We are being broadcast. I'm very tempted to speak words for Josh or Lauren. It could be a fun, like, Sesame Street episode.
Could have a fun game.
Yeah.
You guys move your mouth.
Move
and
your
we will
mouth so
talk
we
for
say
you.
the words.
Now I've turned
I
this
wonder
microphone to 0.
How the transition is going to be with all the equipment to the new. We're just going to pick up all the
So
same stuff.
can you hear
or-
us?
It should be pretty good. They're
No?
really spending, they're spending a lot of time, I mean, like putting it all together and
So it's a new system. It's not. They're not like picking and packing up this stuff.
there might have been pieces from
Components,
here,
yeah.
but it's Scott Stauffer kind of worked with the folks to kind of articulate what the needs were and things like that. So
City,
it
City
should-
Manager Ober's sparing no expense.
I'm telling you, you'll think that. You'll think that when you walk in.
Back there,
I mean, I went over there today. It's
Is it?
really crazy.
I know. I'm really excited
Now,
to
can
see.
can you hear us now?
I encourage you to come to any of the openings and stuff that we have. It's really an impressive feat from when we walked in there however long ago when they had vacated.
yeah.
Like it was a mess.
Yeah.
Stuff everywhere, but they did a great job.
Doesn't look like.
Lots of space.
Jeremy, can I work for 1 second?
Of course.
Since we're not
Since-
doing anything
yeah.
at the moment.
Still on air, though.
That's okay.
Okay.
I just don't know everyone. So hi, I'm City Manager Ann Ober. It's nice to meet you both. I'm here tonight because I want to just understand what's going on with our park. So I'm going to sit and listen to Adam give a great presentation. But I appreciate your service. And if there's ever anything I can do, feel free to call. We're happy to help. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah. Thank you.
And it's great to see you.
Good to see you as well.
And it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
I take it we don't have any audio?
Having trouble getting.
We had a lot of audio to begin.
Too much.
You know, the echo that.
How's the sound now? Can anyone hear us out there?
The systems are better at the new building, and they're all set up,
Yeah.
so it's going to be great.
Yeah. That's exciting.
When are you thinking we might have our first planning commission meeting there?
So the October meetings
Okay.
are going to be over there. So, do we have one more here? No, we have 2 more here. Maybe
Maybe.
September.
We don't have one September 12th because we were trying to avoid that. And then
Yeah.
we may have one here on the 26th, but we might be all the way moved into the new building. So I guess we're going to kind of see
Ooh.
how it all plays out.
Yeah.
That one's kind of not sure.
We'll be your guinea pig if you need one.
Okay.
As you can
Sure,
see, we
guinea
might
pig
be
every
anyway.
single,
so-
every
Yeah.
single
Sure.
planning
Lots of
commission.
chances.
We'll try it out.
Yeah.
See how it works.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Aaron and Will, you want a quick intro?
Yeah,
Put
happy
you on the spot.
No, happy to do that. Yeah, great to meet you. I'm Will Mulhern. Still pretty new to Milwaukee. Moved here in February. Work for the Oregon Department of Energy, so some public sector experience. Kind of familiar with this world a little bit. But yeah, excited to be here and be on the commission and work with these great folks.
That's really cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm Aaron Carpenter. Been in Milwaukee for a couple years now. And I'm a land use planner by trade, so.
So
having
you don't
fun.
blend here at all.
No, not at all.
No.
It's rough. Steep learning curve.
We
Where do you
question
work?
his judgment constantly.
I do too. Yes, you should. So,
Where do you work?
WSP.
Yeah. So you do
Big firm.
firm work. You're a consultant of sorts.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you for what you do too.
And I've done current planning for local agencies or local governments as well. So I know how this feels working.
I'm
with-
sure that it feels great
Yeah.
for them right now, as you can't function.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
There.
Yeah.
Commissioner Mulhorn actually applied for different positions, and both myself and Mayor Beatty wrangled him in here instead. So we appreciate his flexibility, but
Yeah,
I think it'd be great to have his expertise on the board.
That's awesome. We closer? Good luck. I'm gonna get out of this.
Yeah, sounds
Nice to
good.
see you.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah, I believe that's right. I think I've got it set for the Logitech
We have a quorum. If that
Logi rally.
comes to it.
Yeah. So our speaker output is at 0 on this one.
I have this problem just about every time I'm on Zoom or Teams. Or like, and my headphones are connected and like.
Teams is
So you're still not hearing us out there?
hard when you switch, especially if you switch like between headphones or speaker or using their speaker, it never tracks. It's like too many billion options.
Yeah.
Center as co-host. So, I hadn't successfully made you a co-host? Does that work now?
Yes.
You sure?
As a panelist.
Okay.
Yeah. Log in the same as they do, though, as a panelist. They should be able to hear, if we can hear in the room, they should be able to hear it as well. Not sure why they're not.
Lauren, can you hear us? You can. Could you say something?
Hello, hello.
Uh,
Oh, I don't know what happened, but now you guys are all grayed out. Like, looks like a
Old timey show.
bad like Dateline episode.
Did we get
That's
Josh
okay.
too?
Well, that's fine.
Uh,
Keep that.
Josh, can you hear us as well? Yes, okay.
Josh, are they black and white on your screen?
Yeah.
That's
We're gonna solve a murder mystery in the next couple of hours. I can see it.
I can see them on two screens. One is black and white and one is color.
We get to choose whichever one
Yeah,
we,
choose your
we
path.
look, whichever one we look better on. Please pay attention
Yeah.
to that screen. Well, after that short intermission at the beginning of our meeting, why don't I just start at the top again and say I'd like to call I've already called the meeting to order, so we'll do that. Agendas and additional copies of staff reports are available on the city website, www.milwaukeeoregon.gov. Please review the agenda if you haven't done so. It contains important information about the process. Our first order of business is our native lands acknowledgement. The city of Milwaukie respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and our gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. I think as some planning commissioners know, it's a topic of interest to myself, kind of indigenous history, and wanted to just note, as I've shared before, Dr. David G. Lewis, who's an anthropologist out of Oregon State University, is kind of like an expert on local indigenous history, and he has a book coming out in November of this year. So just share that out. People can wait to order, or you can pre-order your copy on Amazon. But he's done a lot of local history, which is really cool and interesting. And he's got a great website where you can read a lot about that on your Friday nights when you're not doing other things. Move on to our second order of business, meeting minutes. We don't have any meeting minutes for consideration tonight. Item 3.0, informational items. Are there any informational items from staff?
I do have a few, actually. I wanted to convey Commissioner Edge cannot be here tonight, but he wanted to let everyone know that the Metro Regional Transportation Plan is open for comment through the end of the week. So if folks want to go to Metro's website, you can just Google Metro RTP, and you can get a link to the survey. It's kind of a really interesting tool to talk about transportation projects throughout the region. I also wanted to let everybody know that the city has a new equity manager on board finally that we're really excited about. Gabriella Centollo Gutierrez, and so you'll get to meet her soon, I would assume. So we're looking forward to working with her. And then the next terribly exciting thing is that we're getting ready to have our first Transportation System Plan Advisory Committee meeting in October. It's taken so long. So that project's getting kicked off, and we will be going. We'll have the project schedule up on the website pretty soon, so we can kind of let people know when they can engage, and we'll be having lots of surveys and public workshops, and so we're going to kick that off in October. And I believe that's it.
Great, thanks. I think for any members of the audience in the room or online, I would say, if transportation is something that interests you, definitely spend, and you have time, take a moment to look at Metro RTP. This is, kind of 20-year guiding vision for a lot of transportation investments in the region, of which, of course, Milwaukie, we play our small but mighty important part. So would encourage you to do that and comment before Friday. Great. So we're going to move to Item 4, which is audience participation. This is an opportunity to comment on items that aren't on tonight's agenda. For, I think, members of the public who want to comment on items on the agenda, we do actually have a sign-up sheet located in the hallway. City Manager Ober, maybe you could grab it and just circulate it. I think we only have one signature there, and I see a lot more than one people in the room tonight. So does any member of the audience wish to comment on an item that's not on tonight's Planning Commission agenda? And if participating virtually, please raise your hand in the feature in Zoom. And for anyone who's calling in, you can also dial *9 to indicate that you wish to comment. Hearing none, we can move on to our 5th item of business, the Community Involvement Advisory Committee. At this point, the Planning Commission will act as City Council's appointed Community Involvement Advisory Committee. Does staff have any updates?
I do not at this time.
Great. Does any member of the Community Involvement Advisory Committee have any updates? No? Does anyone in the audience wish to speak with the Planning Commission in our role as the Community Involvement Advisory Committee? Yeah.
Just so that individuals who are maybe new to the city, and I know that you know this, but we hired an assistant city manager who has an extensive engagement background. So she is looking at how we do our engagement. She's going to come talk to you in the coming months about what that looks like as we kind of grow and change. Her name is Emma Sager. She's exceptional. And I just wanted to bring it up in this capacity that we have been heightening that focus here in our office.
Awesome.
Thanks.
That's fantastic. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, we can move forward to our hearing item. We have 2 hearing items tonight, and we'll encourage community members, if we can try and remain focused on each application independently and can confine our testimony to the respective applications, that would be much appreciated. So the first agenda item is a public hearing to consider application number CSU-2023-002. The purpose of the application is to request approval of a community service use for the development of Balfour Park on property located at 3039 Southeast Balfour Street. The public hearing is called to order. The applicant has the burden of proving that the application is consistent with the city's zoning, subdivision ordinance, comprehensive plan, and any applicable municipal code provision, and that the proposal conforms with the applicable criteria. I'll now ask staff to cite the zoning ordinance section or sections where the criteria can be found.
Yeah, thank you. The applicable sections are Milwaukie Municipal Code Section 19.301, Moderate Density Residential Zone, Subsection 19.504.7, On-Site Walkways and Circulation, Chapter 19.600, Off-Street Parking and Loading, Chapter 19.700, Public Facility Improvements, Section 19.904, Community Service Uses, Section 14.08.090, Conditional and Community Service Use Signs, and Section 19.1006, Type 3 Review.
Great. So all testimony and evidence must be directed towards the applicable substantive criteria. Failure to address a criterion or raise an issue with sufficient detail to allow the Planning Commission an adequate opportunity to respond to each issue precludes appeal to the City Council based on that issue. Failure to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient detail to allow a response precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Any party with standing may appeal the decision of the Planning Commission to the City Council. Persons with standing are those who submit comments or testify tonight, or I guess also submit comments online prior to tonight. If any additional documents or evidence are provided by any party, the Commission may, if requested, allow a continuance or leave the record open to allow the parties a reasonable opportunity to respond. Any such continuance or extension shall be subject to the limitations of the 120-day rule unless the continuance or extension is requested or agreed to by the applicant. Conflicts of interest. Does any member of the Commission wish to abstain from tonight's hearing?
Nope.
Seeing none. Does any member of the Commission wish to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest? No?
No.
No.
Seeing none. Any member of the Commission wish to report on any ex parte contacts?
Nope.
No? Nope. Nope. Hearing none. Will any commissioner who has visited the site, Balfour Park, prior to this hearing, please raise their hand? Everyone has been to Balfour Park. Did any commissioners who visited the site speak to anyone at the site or note anything different from what's indicated in the staff report for this application? No?
No.
Hearing-
No.
Commissioner, okay, great. Hearing no's and no nods. Any member of the audience wish to challenge the participation of any member of the Planning Commission? Hearing none. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission to hear this matter? Hearing none. Let's move forward with our staff report.
Okay, thank you. All right, good evening, Chair Sherman, Commissioners, members of the audience. I'm Brett Kelver. I'm a senior planner with the city's planning department, and I'll be walking you through both of these presentations tonight. We'll take them, as the chair noted, one at a time. The first one's for Balfour Park. Just a quick overview of the site. It's comprised of 2 lots in the Ardenwald neighborhood. It's zoned for moderate density residential use. It's just under an acre, and the site is currently vacant or undeveloped, but it's been used since it was acquired by the city as an undeveloped park. And following up on that, the history, the city acquired the park in 2008 and made it available for very passive park use at that point in time. In 2015, there was a process to develop a concept plan for how the park could be with certain developments, and then picking up on that process, the applicant team, who you hear from tonight, engaged in a public outreach process to kind of finalize some of the details of the plan and coordinate that with the city council as well. And the applicant team can give more details and information about that. But we're on the cusp of construction now, so it's time to finally develop the park, and that's why we're here. So just looking back at the plan, the overall plan that was developed in 2015, I've got the graphic here just to show the general layout that was proposed at the time and adopted with a recommendation by the Planning Commission, adopted by the City Council. It included a few key features, a walking path, play area, some picnic tables. At the time, it was identified having some space for community garden, and as you could note from the image that was shown earlier, this lot has several large trees on it, and the plan called for preservation of most of those trees with some additional native plantings. And following up on that, the 2022-23 process to kind of finalize that plan. Made very few changes to that. I mean, like I said, there are a lot more details kind of being dialed in, but the couple of key differences that I just noted was, in addition to a picnic table or tables, they're providing a picnic shelter, and for the time being, there's no community garden proposed. Instead, that's where the picnic table area will be. But overall, you can see from comparing the two diagrams that the general outline, the shape of the park and its improvements are the same. I think a couple things that I will emphasize are that this park, both the parks that we're discussing tonight, are proposed as neighborhood parks. So they're not intended to be the kinds of regional draw that Milwaukie-Brae Park or North Clackamas Park, parks that have, real specific facilities, whether it's ball fields or a boat ramp, that kind of thing that people might come to from more across the region. They're intended really to be accessed by residents, by neighbors in the community who might generally walk or bicycle to the park. And so with that in mind, and keeping in mind that that there has been extensive public outreach and engagement to dial the details in, I guess one of the things that we want to just frame the conversation for the Planning Commission this evening is it's not really your job tonight to try to redesign the park or make design tweaks to the park. As the applicant team can point out, there's been a lot of public conversation about that already. What you're considering tonight is the community service use aspect of this park. And that is, there are certain approval criteria. Generally, you're looking at, are there impacts that need to be mitigated by this particular proposed use? Are the levels of operation, the hours of operation, the type of use that's being proposed, are they needing any kind of mitigation? So we'll try to keep you on track with that this evening. And with that in mind, I've kind of listed the different criteria that you're considering. And in the case of both parks, a couple of these criteria are a little more applicable than others, in particular the hours and level of operation, the appropriateness of the location. With that in mind, I think just kind of cutting to the chase, we'll note that our recommendation as staff was for approval of this, and you do have a few options. One is to adopt the recommended findings and conditions in support of approval. Another would be if you, through your discussion, decide that there's some modifications needed, we'll try to capture those, get them read into the record. You have the option of continuing the hearing if further discussion or information is needed, or you could make a motion to deny the application. Our land use clock, the 120-day clock, gives until November 4th for a final decision, just keeping in mind that that includes a potential appeal to the City Council. So with that in mind, I think we'll just kind of cover that the recommendation by staff is for approval, and I'll ask if you have any questions at this time.
Any questions from members of the commission? I think I'd like to underscore that, we've had our opportunity to engage with the city through work sessions and participate as individual community members in design charrettes and things like that, and remind ourselves again that our goal tonight is not to redesign the park as a commission, but to stay focused on the issues at hand. So with that, I think open it up if any questions from the commission for staff. Hearing none. Great. Have we received correspondence on this matter other than those items included in the meeting packet?
Yeah, we have. There was one comment included in the meeting packet, and since that time, we've received 4 additional comments. They've all been forwarded along to the Planning Commission, including 2 that came in late this afternoon. But I'll just note they're from Kate Houston, Teresa Bresaw, Lisa Holm, all 3 of whom are neighbors. Sorry, not for this park. I'm sorry.
Right. Thank you.
I'm confusing them. No, we have not received any comments.
You got me nervous.
I thought
there
I would
for a
make it
second.
farther into this before confusing the park. Sorry. No
That's all right.
comments.
That's all right. Thanks, Brett. Would the applicant or their representative like to comment?
We have a presentation.
Yeah, that sounds great. Come on up. If you could please introduce yourselves for the record.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Adam Moore. I work for the City of Milwaukie. I'm the Park Development Coordinator.
I'm Matt Hasty. I work for MIG, and we supported the city in preparing the land use application.
I'm Ben Johnson. I'm a landscape architect with Greenworks, and we are the prime consultant working under the city of Milwaukee to design and put construction drawings together for the parks.
Great, thanks so much. Let's proceed to the presentation.
Okay, so Planning Commission, it's great to be here with you all again. I was last here in February, and we are talking about Balfour Park. Just want to let everybody know where we are in the process of planning this park. When the city bought the property for the park, it was at the encouragement of the neighborhood. The neighborhood has been very active in planning that park since that time. They even put together their own plan that was never adopted, but that led to the previous plan in 2015. I was hired and to revise that plan, so we've done extensive community engagement to do those revisions. The concept plan was unanimously approved by City Council in November. We last spoke in February, I believe it was, about our engagement, and I'm going to touch on some of the engagement and some of the activities that we've been doing since then. I do want to note that the land use applications were our 30% design. We have since moved forward in the design. We are getting close to completing 75% design, and we will hit 100% design in October. So Ben will be sharing some more updates from those documents. You can go to the next slide. Just to give you an idea of where we're going, as I said, I'll give you an update of the community engagement. We'll see some updated site plans. We'll share some conceptual design elements of our playgrounds. We expect those to be about 95% complete. And then Matt will take us through the consistency with the city requirements. We've all said it, this is not a design meeting, but we are still designing this park, and we are continuing to do community engagement. The comments that we received on Bowman-Brae Park, for example, we've had plenty of meetings with all of those people, and we will continue to work with anyone in the community up until the plans are final and we cut the ribbons of the park. You can go to the next slide. So just talking about our community engagement in general, each park started with a family-friendly open house. We did hybrid engagement meetings with online surveys. Everything that we presented was both in English and in Spanish, and we provided meals at all of those events. Considering the playground engagement that we just recently wrapped up, we have completed 6 focus groups now. The additional ones were with the Boys and Girls Club, FACT Oregon, which is a statewide organization that works with people with disabilities. And we worked with our stakeholder groups and neighborhood associations on playgrounds. You can go to the next slide. All told, across all 3 parks, including Scott Park, we've sent out 53,240 postcards in English and Spanish. We have yard signs and pop-up engagements, pilot articles, Facebook posts, emails. We give regular updates to PARB. Our next PARB meeting is tomorrow at 4:30. I give a monthly update every PARB meeting at 5:30 to help people understand where we are. And all those summaries and recordings are available online. You can go to the next slide.
Real quick, PARB, just for members of the audience.
Excuse me,
Yeah, no,
Parks and Rec Board.
Yeah.
So across all 3 parks, we've had 384 people involved in this process. We've had 869 surveys completed, either in person or online. 36% of those come from people who are new to the Milwaukie planning process, and 15% of those identify as a race or ethnicity other than only white. You can go to the next slide. And finally, as I said, we are just about to hit the 75% design milestone. When we hit 100%, we'll be having a celebration in the community. We'll be doing a combined open house at Scott Park on Sunday, October 8th from 11 to 1 for the community. Come see the final plans. We'll be having some forward-looking surveys and take comment, as well as all the free donuts, chocolate, chai, and coffee you would like. So just like the open houses that we did in May and last summer, we'll be doing that again to celebrate the end of the plans. And I'm going to turn things over to Ben from Greenworks to dive into some of the specifics of how we've updated Balfour Park. Go ahead. And the next.
It said that the time when the master plan was done in 2015, they didn't have a topographic survey or a tree inventory they were working on. So we received that, and as a design team, we did our best to keep in spirit with the master plan of 2015 and keep the layout of the park as kind of the intent was, with the community gathering space at the foreground closer to Balfour Street with the picnic shelter, and then a nice circular path that brings users through the park accessibly, because if you all have been there, there's a lot of steep grades. So that was a real challenge with this park, is getting that accessible route around the park, as well as preserving trees and shoehorning that playground in there at that northeast corner without impacting trees. And I think we did a really great job in creating a really unique neighborhood park with the resources with the budget that we were given. And it's going to be a really great asset with the kind of stuff that people really, really have wanted all along in this park, with tree preservation, playground, places for the community to gather, planting, and whatnot. So I think it's really in spirit with the 2015 plan, and we've just done our best, as this plan is about 75% CDs or construction drawings, as moving it forward to build a really great park.
And I would just add the decision to go with a shelter instead of the community garden. That was one that we made last October or last November. We had several discussions with City Council about that. That was based on our community engagement. Part of the desire for a community garden was the nearby affordable housing. That affordable housing site is being redeveloped, and our understanding is that they are planning on having up to 50, maybe even 55 community garden plots. We were only looking at 6 here, and the shelter was much more popular in our garden. The reason that you're seeing a different shape of the playground and a different little bit of a site plan here is there is a large horse chestnut tree where the playground was supposed to be. We have learned from our arborist team that we can protect that tree, and so the change of shape is to get around that horse chestnut tree and provide that additional tree protections. That was a huge part of the community engagement that we heard, is save the trees on site. And of course, we have very stringent rules on trees at the city, and so we're trying to abide by that.
Next one.
So this slide just shows where we are in refining the playground design. This was a lot of work that the city had done with engagement and to get feedback, and the feedback we got, I think, really responds to the community feedback to make it a little more engaging. It's a super tiny space, like 1,500 square feet is not a lot to work with for a playground. So we tried to do the best that we can to really tighten things up and have high play value for whatever we put in there, including the log climber, having lots of different play activity, the swing and the embankment slide. And then we think that just given the space around the playground with the trees and the ground plane will really foster just kind of unstructured play. So this is the framework for where play starts, but then we hope that kids will appreciate the trees and the native plantings that are proposed, and just use the entire park as a play space and not just the structures. But we think that this is going to be engaging enough to get that started for all ages and abilities.
Go ahead, go to the next one. And this is just a look at it from the other side. That slide will be at the top of the hill, built into the hill. It will be the only accessible slide that we have where somebody in a wheelchair can get to the top of the slide. As of right now, we expect that our budget will afford us to do the playground safety tiles there instead of the engineered wood fiber, which is much more accessible for people or children with mobility concerns or in a wheelchair. And we've done something fun there with the tiles. That green line is just a different color of tile, showing keeping people away from the high impact area of the swing or the climber, to go back to the ramp and slide again. You can go to the next slide.
This is just an example image of what the picnic shelter would look like. Company out of Baker City, Oregon, Natural Structures makes these, and they're really great, robust structures that do really well to test the time in parks.
We do plan on having a switch-operated light at the top of the shelter on the inside, pointed down. That would be on a timer. That's consistent with like the shelters that we have at Bowman-Brae Park. Go ahead and go to the next.
All right, I get to be the closer, sort of, as Adam said. So I'm just going to reiterate really what Brett said and what the staff report says and what the recommendation says, and just talk about consistency with city standards and approval criteria. I mean, you've already heard this has been in the works for quite some time, purchased in 2008 for uses of park, very similar to the previous conceptual planning work in 2015. The design meets all the city's base zone standards, so related to setbacks, heights of structures, parking, et cetera. One of the approval criteria has to do with the benefits outweighing the negative impacts, and really, again, the design is meant to attract folks from the neighborhood and to really limit any negative impacts. Lighting will be kind of tucked under the shelter, so that's not going to sort of go outside of the shelter or outside of the park. The operating hours are essentially daytime operating hours. So again, really, there's no sort of loud noise generating things within the park other than hopefully kids having a lot of fun in the park. And, this park's designed to benefit the neighborhood and the neighbors and, hundreds of folks. So, so really, the city's pretty confident that the benefits far outweigh any negative impacts associated with the park. And it's an appropriate location for the park, just based on the original plans to purchase the site for a park, and that it's within a neighborhood, it's meant to serve the neighborhood. And so just want to echo staff's recommendation for approval. And just also say, it's been great working with planning staff, and for me working with all the city staff on this and the rest of the team. So thank you, and I think that's it for our presentation, unless Adam wants to do a final closing now. Okay, all right, so thank you. And I guess, do we take questions, or yeah?
Yeah,
so.
do any commissioners have questions for the applicant?
No.
Yeah, Vice Chair Freeman.
Thank you, Chair Sherman. I just have a question about some of the outreach for the planning for the park. Were you capturing the information about how many residents or potential park participants where they were located in retrospect to where the park is?
Yeah, we did a couple different activities to try and gauge where we were talking to people from. One thing that we did was ahead of the open house, we only sent postcards to the area within a half a mile of the park. We also asked people as they signed in to put a sticker on a map to show us where they were located. On the surveys, we did ask people if they were a resident of the city of Milwaukie and what neighborhood they lived in. I don't have those statistics off the top of my head. However, across the entire project, we know that 65% of the people that we've talked to in those 800 and some odd surveys live within the city of Milwaukie. I should note that several of the parks that we're talking about are very near the city limits, and our postcards do go to the entire UGMA as well as the 97222 area code, trying to encompass all those people who have mailing addresses that say Milwaukie, think they live in Milwaukie. We wanted them to feel welcome as well. We've also worked very closely with the Neighborhood Association, attending several Neighborhood Association meetings, and done pop-up engagement in the park itself with park users.
Yeah.
Just as a kind of follow-up question, I know the plan is for this park to be primarily used by local residents, but I know that as a new park that's going to draw residents from across the city and probably outside the city. I know there's not, I think they mentioned like any like a water feature or a big pool, but I think the parks generally attract families across the city. There is, I think the proposal is not to have any parking. What is the plan to limit the impacts from residents who are visiting the park from across the city and outside the city?
Yeah, so one thing that's unique about Balfour Park is that Balfour Street is going to be redesigned by the city's engineering team, part of a project known as Ardenwald South, I believe it is. That will be coming about a year after the park is built, and they will be redesigning that street to be more pedestrian friendly. So the right-of-way improvements that we show in our plan, that is what we talk to the community about for the park. However, that entire street will be redesigned. We will not be constructing in the right-of-way, therefore, because it doesn't make sense when the entire street is going to be done. We did talk to residents about that. Parking was not something that they wished to see inside the park property. They wanted it to maintain green and open and utilized for play and other amenities. It's very typical for us here in Milwaukie with our neighborhood parks not to build parking. So for example, the most recent one was Wichita. Wichita Park has new modern equipment, some unique features that we don't have in other parks. That does not have any parking on site, although they did make some adjustments to the right-of-way to allow people to pull off, and that is what we're showing at Bowman-Brae and Balfour Park is a pull-off area, so people with mobility challenges, or maybe somebody who's delivering a birthday cake to that shelter has a place to pull off, and they're given a little extra room. There's a lot of street parking on Balfour Street and in front of the park, and we have never seen it be a challenge. Obviously, that is something that could change, and we will continue to monitor the situation with the neighborhood association, with the city and the engineering team, and if we need to make adjustments, we will do so.
That's great. I actually live by Wichita Park, and there's a couple spots out front. I was hoping there'd be something similar to the Balfour Park. So I think there's at least 2 spots or so. But if the plan is to incorporate that into the street improvement, that would be great.
Yeah, in our plan, we're showing one. We're calling it a drop-off area inside the right-of-way there, but that won't be built until after the street is redone. Just to clarify, excuse me.
And I would just note really briefly that given the scale of the park, the nature of the park as a neighborhood park, there was no requirement for a traffic impact study because the amount of traffic generated is expected to be quite low. So while it may attract folks from other parts of town, the expectation is really the majority of the use will be by folks who are in the neighborhood and are close by. And so it really didn't kind of rise to that level of requiring parking spaces or an impact study or things like that. So just to note that.
I believe the right-of-way at Balfour Park is very wide, very different than when we talk about Bowman-Brae. And so even without that drop-off space, there's enough room to park in front of there. And I've seen as many as 3 or 4. I don't remember the actual distance of the parks right now, the measurements of the parks right now, but you can get 3 or 4 parks, or 3 or 4 cars comfortably in front of the park on the street there.
Well, and I'd hope that if there were potential negative impacts in the future as the city is, redesigning Balfour as part of 29th Avenue Greenway, thinking about parking configuration could maybe be part of a future conversation. I know that a few blocks north on, what is it? I just pulled up the map real fast. On Boyd Street is paved. And when you go out and see fully paved curb-to-curb right-of-way, you realize how wide these streets really are. And, there could potentially be, as we have downtown, angled parking configuration there to, maybe create more parking spots if that was necessary. And, it's just playing things forward into the future. But maybe if issues came up, although it doesn't sound like they're expected to because of the nature of it as a local park, maybe we could think about those topics. I think I was also wanting to note Balfour specifically is also designated as a bike route, and so as we're thinking about impacts there, how are we planning for and managing that right of way, which is separate from the park, but those things kind of go hand in hand, especially since we have bike facilities in the park. But I don't think we need to get into that now. Are there any other questions from members of the commission? I had a question for the applicant, probably more than anybody. I know the city of Milwaukie, the applicant, has taken very proactive perspective in its parks and, acquiring the property, leading this planning process. And I was just curious, what role, if any, North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District has played kind of in this project.
Yeah, so, well, certainly we're building off of their 2015 plan. We work very diligently with NCPRD's, North Clackamas Parks and Rec District's staff. We have monthly meetings with them as staff. Their staff has been invited to provide comment and all of the designs, as well as been involved in every step of our community engagement. So for example, we did a focus group with stakeholders on playgrounds. NCPRD staff participated in those. We have NCPRD staff at our monthly Parks and Rec Board meetings, our PARB meetings. So we have been working in coordination with them, even though this is a city-led project.
So they're in a supporting role. Okay, great. Any other questions from staff? Wonderful. Well, we can move on, thank you, to public testimony. So we'll now open it up for public testimony on this application. If you're here to testify, please remember to have filled out one of the yellow cards. There's yellow cards out front, and to focus your remarks to the application and the relevant criteria, and to try and avoid repetition and any irrelevant information. If you could please state your name and city of residence for the record, that would be great, so they could be entered into the meeting minutes. And I will use our 3-minute timer and invite Allie up to testify first. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Allie Fierstein, and I am the chair of the Parks and Rec Board, and I'm here to speak in support of the Balfour Park plans. I really just wanted to highlight what Adam had shared, specifically around the engagement and the efforts towards engagement and incorporating as many voices of the residents of Milwaukie as possible. I really just want to speak to how I've been part of the process. I've been there to see the beginning of the design, starting from 2015 until where we're at 75% completion. And to say that the responsiveness that I've seen has been incredible. The plans looked like slightly different, and as the engagement opportunities were held, I really saw that responsiveness that our applicant team has provided, and taking the suggestions of our residents very seriously, and then making those changes to accommodate and really make sure that our residents' voices are heard, as well as a very equitable approach. Equity is something that's very dear and near to me as someone who's been my adult life and education. And so with that as chair, I've been really bringing that to the board. And so I think that his efforts in mitigating any barriers, including any minority voices, making sure that there is family care, child care, and making it as family friendly as possible to make sure that we have as much participation has really been something that I'm proud to speak that I've been a part of. So I do also suggest approval for these plans, and I'm really looking forward to everything going, hopefully, as well. So thank you so much.
Does any member of the Planning Commission have a question for for Allie, who provided testimony? No? Are there any other people who wish to speak in support of the application? And also just a reminder, if anyone's online, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom, or you can also press *9 if you're dialing in from your cellular phone or home phone.
I'm watching online for just a moment to see. We have a few people in the attendee list. I don't see any hands raised.
Well, we can move maybe slowly on to see if there's anyone opposed to the application for Balfour Park that would like to testify. Seeing or hearing none in the room and nothing online. And is there any members of the public who wish to offer neutral testimony for Balfour Park? Great. Brett, I will hand it over to you and see if there's any responses from staff, any responses to the testimony from staff.
I don't think we have anything to add.
And does any member of the Planning Commission have questions regarding testimony to this point? None. Does the applicant wish to rebut any of the testimony that was provided from the chair of our Parks and Recreation Board? No? Hearing none? Great. If not, I will close the public testimony portion of this hearing. The public testimony portion of the hearing on the request regarding the development of Balfour Park, file CSU 2023-002 is now closed. Is the commission ready for discussion? Great. Vice Chair Freeman, how about I let you lead off?
Thank you, Chair Sherman. I'd just like to say I would probably echo some of the comments from the chair of the Parks Board. I'm happy that this park is moving forward. I think the neighborhood and the residents are going to be happy to have this addition to the parks of Milwaukie. I just hope as they finish up the design that we're keeping in mind that there will be residents from across the city coming to visit the park, and that there's provisions to have them parking, hopefully, but some way they can visit the park if they're outside of walking or biking distance, that all residents have access to the park. And I'm happy this is moving forward. Thanks.
Commissioner Losfeld, do you have anything you'd like to share? No?
I agree with Vice Chair Freeman and really applaud the city and those who testified this evening for their commitment. I love the design, even though we're not speaking about it, and I'm in full support.
Great. Any members of the commission in the room? Any discussion from you on this? No? From Commissioner Ert? Nothing? Great. I think I'll just also echo Vice Chair Freeman's comments, as well as our PARB chair's comments, and really just thank staff and the city for all the work that's been done on this. Adam, I will look at you specifically on that. There was, I think, very robust public engagement process, of which I participated in as a community member, and really appreciate all the work and how responsive the city's been on this process. I'm happy to move forward with voting aye on this, and would like to see if we're maybe ready to have a motion for application CSU-2023-002. Can someone?
I'll motion to approve.
So we have a motion to approve application CSU-2023-002. Is it seconded?
Second.
It's been seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hand raised. The motion passes unanimously. The application for CSU-2023-002 is approved. If anyone wishes to appeal the Planning Commission's decision to Milwaukie City Council, you must make application stating the grounds for your appeal within 15 days of the mailing of the notice of decision. Please see planning staff for details. Take a moment to breathe. Great. Well, let's move on to the next agenda item, which is our public hearing to consider application number CSU-2023-003. The purpose of the application is to request approval of a community service use for the development of Bowman-Brae Park, which is located at 4225 Southeast Bowman Street. The public hearing is called to order. The applicant has the burden of proving that the application is consistent with the city's zoning, subdivision ordinance, comprehensive plan, and any applicable municipal code provision, and that the proposal conforms with the city's applicable criteria. Brett, would you be so kind as to cite the zoning ordinance section or sections where the criteria could be found?
I will.
Thanks.
Sure. From Milwaukie Municipal Code, Section 19.301, Moderate Density Residential Zone, subsection 19.504.7, On-Site Walkways and Circulation, Chapter 19.600, off-street parking and loading, Chapter 19.700, public facility improvements, Section 19.904, community service uses, Section 14.08.090, conditional and community service use signs, and Section 19.1006, Type 3 review.
Great. All testimony and evidence must be directed towards the applicable substantive criteria. Fail to address a criterion or raise an issue with sufficient detail to allow the Planning Commission an adequate opportunity to respond to each issue precludes appeal to the City Council based on that issue. Failure to raise constitutional or other related issues to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient detail to allow a response precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Any party with standing may appeal the decision of the Planning Commission to City Council. Persons with standing are those who submit comments or testify tonight. If additional documents or evidence are provided by any party, the Planning Commission may, if requested, allow a continuance or leave the record open to allow the parties a reasonable opportunity to respond. Any such continuance or extension shall be subject to the limitations of the 120-day rule unless the continuance or extension is requested or agreed to by the applicant. Conflicts of interest. Does any member of the Planning Commission wish to abstain from this hearing? No. Hearing none. Does any member of the commission wish to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest? No. Hearing none. Does any member of the commission wish to report on any ex parte contacts? No. Hearing or seeing none. Will any commissioner who has visited the site prior to this hearing please raise their hand? Several hands have been raised. Any of the commissioners who visited the site speak to anyone at the site or note anything at the site that is different from what is indicated in the staff report for this application? No. Hearing and seeing none. Any member of the audience wish to challenge the participation of any member of the Planning Commission? Hearing or seeing none. None online?
I don't see any hands raised
Great.
online. Correct.
Thank you. Any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission to hear this matter? Hearing or seeing none. Brett, if we could proceed to the staff report.
All right. Chair Sherman, Commissioners, I'm still Brett Kelver, Senior Planner with the City's Planning Department, and I'll walk you through this. Of the second applications, I apologize for there'll be a little bit of repetition of some things, but they are obviously two different sites and have a few different issues, so there will be a little bit of difference that we're discussing this evening. But we are moving forward with the community service use approval proposal for Bowman-Brae Park. This site is kind of at the other end of town, kind of along a diagonal from Balfour Park in the northwestern part of the city to the Bowman-Brae site is in the southeastern portion of the city, and it is right adjacent to a portion of the city limits in that area. It's in the Lake Road neighborhood on a residential lot there. It's also zoned for moderate density residential use. It's just under 3/4 of an acre in size, and just like Balfour Park, it is undeveloped, but it has been utilized in some fashion as an undeveloped park since it was acquired in 2008, at the same time the Balfour Park property was. And similar to Balfour Park, a concept plan was developed in 2015 and approved for Bowman-Brae Park. With a similar outreach and engagement effort by Adam and others at the city in 2022 and continuing into this year to finalize the plan design with, again, a similar timetable for finalizing the design and moving forward with construction. A couple key features from the 2015 concept plan. Similar to Balfour Park, kind of a focus of this is just providing an improved surface for a walking area, a play area, picnic tables and a shelter, benches. And this site, unlike Balfour Park, does not currently have a lot of plantings on it. And so part of the design was to add significantly to the landscaping of the site. And again, similar to Balfour Park, there, the effort most recently to finalize the plans, has not made any radical changes to the concept plan that was discussed and approved in 2015. I think one small difference that I'll point out is just the addition of a small turnout area. Kind of, I know I've flipped this a little different, not north-south direction, but it's at the southeastern corner of the park site, kind of at Bowman Street. A small turnout area has been added to make it a little bit easier to access the park for folks with mobility challenges.
And just to clarify, that's kind of the area in the lower left. Is that
See if
correct?
I can get my cursor to
Right in,
show it right
right
here.
in there. Okay.
Yes, right. Next to, near kind of what's currently proposed, or in this version was proposed as some bike parking. But yes, this is kind of a key access point from Bowman Street.
Great. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. I think, again, I'd just say before moving on to the other pieces that I'll reiterate for anyone maybe who is joining us late, but both parks, Balfour Park and Bowman-Brae Park, are designed and intended to be neighborhood parks. Again, different than Milwaukie Bay Park, North Clackamas Park. Obviously presenting some features that'll be nice amenities for folks in the area, but not intending to be the kind of regional draw of a major sports complex or a boat launch area that you'd see in some other spots. So again, the intent and the effort was to address what had been identified in the city as some deficiencies across the community about where some of these simple neighborhood park areas had been. And both of these projects for Balfour and Bowman and Brae were attempting to address that and provide a little more equity in terms of the distribution of this kind of neighborhood park resource across the community. So again, the task before the Planning Commission this evening is not so much to delve into the design details of the parks, but to really consider some of those community service use aspects. Again, a question of public benefits versus impacts, appropriateness of location. Those are some of the key points we'll try to keep you on track with. But again, for reference, these are the approval criteria for community service use. And then again, you have the similar suite of decision-making options in terms of what's been presented to you, the findings, either making some modification, deciding you need more information, or making a recommendation to deny the application. And in this case, I guess the one small adjustment that I have is that since we prepared the packet with the findings in response to a couple of questions that came in, we did identify a couple of minor adjustments to make to those, and I'll present those real quickly to you right now. They're mostly kind of almost a Scrivener's error, and I'm sorry, I know this is really, really small, but one of them, this is in relation to the requirement for on-site walkways. This is mostly a factual error on my part. I described the proposed walkway in the park originally as being 6 feet. It does have some variety, and there's a portion of it that I think is closer to 6 feet, but the portion here that I was trying to address, which would have essentially kind of connect the area closest to Where Else Lane to the Bowman Street area, is actually proposed in the plan as a 9-foot wide section. And so I adjusted this finding just to reflect that fact, and also just clarifying this concrete paving. I think it wasn't that inaccurate, but just permeable instead of permeable pavers, just permeable concrete paving. Then the other item relates to again, one of the provisions of the code and what's in our transportation system plan. Our transportation system plan for the pedestrian element does show a potential future connection through the park area for pedestrians and bikes to connect the Lake Road neighborhood better with North Clackamas Park, and that walkway essentially is doing that. The thing we wanted to correct here was that there is a standard in the code for that kind of facility with a minimum width of 10 feet instead of 9 feet. And so we discussed this with Adam and the team, and they indicated that it would not be a problem to add an additional foot to that. And so we just wanted to capture that in a finding here, just clarifying the TSP reference and the minimum width requirement. And with that in mind, I guess we'd recommend just clarifying that in one of the conditions of approval, just clarifying that the park would be a 10-foot instead of 9-foot wide provision. So with that, I'll just ask if you have any questions.
Any clarifying questions for staff? Seeing none online and hearing none in the room. Commissioner Carpenter, you're
I don't know if
thinking
this.
about it?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the right time to ask, but have these designs been looked at by the fire department in terms of access for the flag lots and back? Is there any sort of?
I think I'll defer that question to the applicant team. I think they
Great.
can probably speak a little bit
Thanks.
more to that. It's part of the design process.
Thank you.
Thanks. I think I just got lost in my script, so give me a moment. Have we received any correspondence on this matter other than the items included in the meeting packet?
If you are tuning in late, this will be news. But if you were here earlier, I spoiled it already. But now is the appropriate time to say, yes, we did receive.
And you're still Brett Kelver?
I am still Brett Kelver, and I did this before. We did receive a few comments after the packet was produced, and I'll just quickly read them. There were 3 comments from neighbors, Kate Houston, Teresa Bresaw, and Lisa Holm, and 1 comment was received from Brad Albert, who's the Public Works Director and District Engineer with the Oak Lodge Water Services District. So those 2 of them from Lisa Holm and from Brad Albert and Oak Lodge came in late this afternoon. I did forward them to you. The other 2 came in earlier and were also forwarded to you for your review.
Great. Thank you. Would the applicant like to give a presentation or provide comment? Please come on up and introduce yourselves for the record. Maybe saying that you're still Adam Moore, and
I am still Adam Moore, and I'm still employed by the City of Milwaukee as the Park Development Coordinator.
And I am still Matt Hasty, still with MIG, still helping out with the land use application.
Ben Johnson with Greenworks.
Just like in Brett's presentation, you are going to see some overlap. I do want to make sure that this is included in the record. Just wanted to say that this is a very important park to this neighborhood, and even though it is undeveloped and lacks a lot of landscaping, it is a very heavily used park. In fact, we've seen it used far more than, say, Balfour Park or some of the other parks in our site visits. I would also like to just commend the neighbors who live around this park for their participation. We have seen more participation from people who live around the Lake Road neighborhood, not only in Balfour or Bowman-Brae Park, but also in Balfour and Scott Park and the other park work that we've been doing in the city. They are really committed to this park and would really like to see it happen. You can go to the next slide. So again, I'm going to do a recap of our community engagement. Ben is going to show you how the park site plans have adjusted in response to some of the comments that we've heard. I should also note that we did receive a grant from Metro that has helped us really update this park and Balfour Park and Scott Park, even though we're not talking about Scott today. And so that's why we have a larger budget now, and so we're able to do a little bit more. And so that's one of the reasons why you're going to be seeing more. Ben will also share some conceptual designs of the playground that are about 95% complete. And then Matt will talk about the consistency with the city requirements. He gets the fun part. We can go to the next slide. Just like with Balfour Park, we started with family-friendly open houses, and I do want to just take a minute to say one of the reasons we start with open houses in the neighborhood is to activate the park and bring people to the park to talk about what they want to see, but it also gives us as planners and as people who are going to be programming the park in the future to look at conflicts in the neighborhood. So we can see how the park is used, and we can look around and say, gee, wouldn't it be great if we had an electrical outlet over there? And so at Bowman-Brae Park, we were able to witness the park in use and see what it really needed and where some of those conflicts were. And the vast majority of the people who attended that open house, it was very well attended, even though it was a hot summer day. Most of those people still did walk or ride their bike, and we did not see any parking conflicts there. We also had hybrid meetings and online surveys. Everything was in English and Spanish as well. And we did 6 focus groups with our BIPOC community, Spanish-speaking community, people with disabilities at the direction of City Council, then as well as with FACT Oregon, the Boys and Girls Club, and our stakeholder groups. and go on to the next meeting. We've also sent out 5,240 postcards in English and Spanish on this project. We have yard signs that are up in the park right now, pilot articles, Facebook posts, emails, regular council updates, regular PARB meeting updates. Everything is summarized and provided online and available for them. I will also note that part of community engagement for me is providing public education so that we can all speak on the topics using the same vocabulary. And so in September of last year, by the time that the community had heard a lot about like concepts of nature-based play or inclusive play or accessibility or park safety, we did a really wonderful presentation with Greenworks, about an hour long, educating the community in all of those concepts and things to look for ahead of our playground planning. And I wanted to make sure that I shared that. You can go to the next slide. So again, this is for all three of the parks. I don't have it divided out specifically to Bowman-Brae, but 384 community members participating, 869 surveys either online or in person, 36% new to the planning process. So we're meeting that goal of bringing new people in, and about 15% of those people identify as being a member of a BIPOC race or ethnicity. You can go to the next slide. And again, so this concept plan was approved unanimously by City Council in 2015 with the direction that we try to add more trees, and Ben will be showing you all some more trees. The packet that went out had 30% design. Ben is going to show you 75% design. We will hit 100% design again in October. We will continue to be talking with the neighbors. Kate and Teresa and I have walked the property, walked down to their houses, walked Bowman Street down to their driveways. We've seen the park through their eyes and had a number of conversations with them and other residents. I've also walked the neighborhood, introducing myself by knocking on people's doors, leaving concept plans and cards at people that didn't answer. So we're really trying to think about how we impact that neighborhood, particularly those houses that have a sight line or share a border with the park. We've stopped at all those houses. But if anybody has anything that they would like to share with us up until October 9th, they're welcome to do that. And a great place to do that is at Scott Park on Sunday, October 8th from 11 o'clock to 1 p.m. We will have face painting, we will have balloon animals, we will have donuts, chai, hot chocolate, coffee, and all sorts of entertainment for you. Thank you. Go ahead. And go ahead, Ben.
Right. Thanks, Adam. Of all the sites being designed and developed right now, Bowman-Brae kind of is the least interesting of all three sites. So, you know, as a designer, you kind of scratch your head of like, well, what can you do to make this a really great place for the neighborhood and the community, a place that the future generations can enjoy. You know, the master plan in 2015 had the bones there for, you know, circulation paths, picnic shelters, playgrounds. And I think in the development of the design and the feedback we've heard in the last year really emphasized what we could do in this really, you know, 0.69 acres to make it special. You know, what can we do with that little tiny playground to make it interesting and engagement? And then what can we do beyond just the circulation with planting and trees to make this place special? Because right now it's just a barren brown grass that people utilize, obviously, because there's a need for it. Because, you know, level of service, the closest open space is North Clackamas Park, you know, and that's not a neighborhood park. So with that, I think we took the bones and massaged them and added on and made and put the spice in the playground and the planting and the tree design, which we'll show in the next couple slides.
And I just want to jump in here real quick and say that, yeah, adding an extra foot of width to a walking path is not an issue at all.
And so this is the kind of the direction we're going with the playground design, in a very, like Balfour, in a very small space, but we wanted to make it a little bit different than Balfour, obviously. So we have a really neat log structure that has a lot of variety in it, and engaging for all ages and abilities. And in a very, very small footprint, have swing sets, a swing set for typically developing kids, and then also kids with disabilities with the adaptive playground seat, and then a toddler seat. All with tile surfacing that's fully accessible. And then, you know, nice benches that are off the path for chaperones to enjoy and watch the children play.
Go to the next
And this is just another view of that. I think, I don't know how you can not look at that and get excited. I mean, I want to play on that. And, you know, typically we design playgrounds from 2 to 5 or 5 to 13. And that age frame, once you're at 13, is really hard to design for. And I think this would really engage all those ages and abilities.
And I just want to say, you know, one of the things that we heard in the concept planning and one of the things that we heard in the playground planning is that what we were showing was a little bit too basic. That in the concept planning, we were saying, hey, where's that wow factor? And I think Ben did a really good job of working with our budget and our space to get this really unique feature. We also heard in the playground design, you know, yes, we want a toddler swing. Yes, we want an ADA swing, but we want something for the older kids as well. And so Ben's done a really great job of working with us, and thanks for that grant that we had, we're able to provide something really unique and something that we feel is going to provide in such a small space an activity for everyone without having the room for, you know, ball fields or basketball courts or things like that. And so a lot of these features that you're seeing are brand new, and we're going to be the first city to have some of them. So we're really excited about it. Go ahead.
So this slide kind of highlights the planting design and the tree design. And this is going to be a great place. I mean, the thing about trees is they're great for the next generation when you plant them. And that's kind of, you know, we're designing for the people that live there now, but also the future generations. And I believe the tree planting design here is going to be really make this place special with some of the large evergreens that are just going to grow at a massive scale, Oregon oaks, elm trees, and then also some Yoshino cherries, to kind of a nod to the cherry tree that's prevalent here in Milwaukie. But we wanted to kind of create the framework with the trees and not impede the space, so there's still plenty of flexible open space in the middle. But as those trees grow up, it's going to provide plenty of shade for the walking paths, the seating areas, as well as the playgrounds.
And those trees that we're showing inside of the open lawn, that open lawn was very important to people back in 2015. We heard that echoed in our concept planning. So those trees that you're seeing in there will grow up high. We'll be able to limb those up and keep those sight lines open, so you'll be able to go underneath it. But as we've noticed, our summers are starting to get very, very hot. In fact, we had to reschedule our open house for this park because the heat was so immense. So I think it was 106 degrees the night we were planning on the open house. And that was in a park without any shade at all. And so providing that shelter and trees that are going to provide shade for the future generations was really important to that. And it's also a nod to our climate action plan here at the city, is providing a variety of trees. We've also, Ben's done a really great job of laying these out, and I've visited the park and thought a lot about sight lines and trying to place vegetation that can provide some visual screening for people while still being inviting in those entrances. And I think that is something that we're going to be looking at as we move forward to 100% design. I think we can go to the next slide.
All right, I'm going to close it up again. I also just want to note, so when these land use applications were submitted, the team was at 30% design. You've heard from Adam and Ben that it's proceeding to 75 and then 90. So there are some tweaks during that design process, but none of those things change consistency with the city's development code standards or with the approval criteria. So I just want to note that it's pretty typical during a design process for there to be those tweaks, but they don't in this case affect consistency with those standards. So you'll hear me say some of the same things I said in the last presentation. Again, consistency with the previous concept planning process and with the intent and really use of this as a neighborhood park, and that it be oriented towards the neighborhood. Again, it's been designed to make sure we are consistent with the city's development code standards, and designed to really minimize impacts. Same comments about lighting as at Balfour Park. The lighting's up inside the shelter, so it's not, and it's oriented downward, so it's not sort of entering out or going outside the park. Operating hours are sort of consistent with daytime use and not impacting folks in that way. And again, just a lot of benefits. I mean, you've heard about the engagement and just the support and the desire for a park in this area. So I think while there are some concerns about parking and things like that, you know, the benefits are really significant for this park. And again, location in this area is appropriate for the use. And as Ben noted, and I think Adam did too, just providing a more equitable distribution of parks throughout the city is a really important goal for the city. So it's helping support that need as well. And finally, I'll say again, thank you staff for the recommendation for approval. Obviously, we support that and concur with it. And I think that's all we have. And happy to answer questions if you have them.
Great, sounds good. Thanks much. Open it up for commissioners, questions for the applicants, and recalling that Commissioner Carpenter, I believe, has one.
And I'm worried that this falls into the design aspect, but just making sure, maybe we can talk about what the discussion was on access and making sure that parking or any possible conflicts don't conflict with access to some of those funky streets that's going on there.
Yeah, so one of the things that makes Bowman-Brae Park rather challenging is that it has private property around it for about 3.5 sides. And so you have streets that turn into private driveways. You have a private driveway along one of the borders that looks like a street. There's some property that we are in the process of acquiring to bring it to Where Else Lane to provide an access point there. That is now open for people to use until construction starts. Part of the reasons why we've done such extensive outreach is to really think about this park and try to get it sized right for the neighborhood and provide the features that the neighborhood is looking at without making it too big. We did include that drop-off area and give that turnaround space in there because Bowman Street is rather narrow, and so this will give people an opportunity to drop somebody off and go park somewhere else. Also, another challenge to this property is that half of it is next to property that's inside the city limits, and the other half of it is in unincorporated area. We don't have control over those sidewalks or those streets. The streets aren't in the best condition. The area in the unincorporated area often lacks sidewalks, and so even though we're working on a new transportation plan and working on safe access to our parks and our different hubs across the city, we wouldn't be able to pave those areas or provide sidewalks if we could. And so making sure that people in the neighborhood who have mobility concerns, who can't take their walker or their wheelchair down the street, have a place to pull off next to the park was really important. When we did our open house, we had people parked on Bowman Street, and everyone was still, Kate and Bill, were still able to get into their driveway without impacts. We have discussed Bowman Street, Brae Street, and Where Else Lane with the city engineer, and we're working on that project with the engineering team to look at how we can make sure that we aren't impacting people's driveways or their private property, but we're still providing access. We are in conversations through the engineering team with Clackamas County about the roads and lack of sidewalks. And we have walked the park with the city manager and with the police chief, and really trying to just think about how can we be very good neighbors to everyone around that park. This park is heavily utilized without amenities. We know that it will be heavily utilized with amenities. Part of our hope is that with bringing 3 parks online in different areas of the city, in addition to all the other parks that we have, that yes, people are probably going to want to visit each of those parks, but they're all going to open in October, Scott Park, Bowman-Brae, and Balfour at the same time. So we're hoping that we're not going to see that rush. And like I said, we conducted our open house and saw most of the people, even though it was a 90-degree day, walk over, ride their bike over, and if they did park in a neighborhood, there weren't a whole lot of challenges there. Did that answer your question?
It did.
Thanks.
Any other questions from commissioners for staff or for the applicant? None online. Anything else in the room? Maybe just a quick follow-up on some of that. Recognizing that some community members are adjacent to the park in unincorporated Clackamas County. yeah, how has the conversation gone with the county in terms of any improvements that they might make on transportation?
I have not been a part of those comments or those discussions about transportation as of yet. Our work has been with NCPRD, which includes all of that area. And then just like with Scott Park and Balfour Park, we've covered the area in postcards, and we do not look at it in terms of where you actually live or what your mailing address is. We've covered the entire zip code and the UGMA. We've ensured that we are covering people whether they're in the city or not.
Sure.
We want to talk to you.
So those community members that live across the street in unincorporated Clackamas County have been engaged in the process. Yeah.
And even here, we went to the extra step of knocking on doors and handing out business cards and talking with them.
They could also probably conceivably petition to annex into the city and maybe receive a higher level of service as well.
Well, that's a topic for another discussion.
Topic for another discussion. Great. Anything else for the applicants? No? Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We'll move to the public testimony portion of the hearing and recognize people submitting public testimony. If you're here to testify, please remember to confine your remarks to the application and the relevant criteria and to avoid repetition and information that isn't relevant. The moderator on Zoom could mute you if disruptions occur and could also get the gavel out, which will hopefully be unnecessary here. And if you could please state your name and city of residence for the record so they could be entered into the minutes. And we will start with people submitting testimony in support of the application. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak in support? We have one here. And also, if anyone is online, please via Zoom, you can raise your hand, or if you're calling in on your phone, you can press *9. Maybe while people digitally do that, we'll invite Allie up in support of the application. Again, if you could state name, city, and residence, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Great. Hello again. My name is Allie Fierstein, and I am the chair of Parks and Rec Board here in Milwaukie. And I'm here before you again in support of our plan. And really, just for brevity, I don't necessarily want to go into all of the detail from my statement earlier, but very same sentiments in terms of the engagement efforts that our planning team and our applicant team has provided. A couple of things that I'd like to add just to all of you in case you are not aware of some of the extra efforts and the amount of above and beyond they have gone has been having and providing a booth at some of our Milwaukie festivals and events like the Pride event and also our June 19th event, and just trying to bring as many voices and representation to the table as possible. I'd also like to just talk a little bit about how excited we've all been to see how responsive, again, the plans have been and how responsive it is to those who have shared the voice, and the number of people who have come to the events, I think really also speaks to the excitement and the enthusiasm that the city of Milwaukie and its residents has. And so I like to also just remind all of you that Adam has been sharing some updates of these plans at 5:30 at the Parks and Rec Board meetings, and our next one is tomorrow, so please feel free to join us. And that is everything I have, and I will stay here this time.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much. Does any members of the commission have questions for our first speaker? No? No? Well, thank you very much, Allie.
You're
have a good
thanks.
evening. We will move on to anyone else, anyone online raise their hand, Brett?
I'm looking right now for raised hands.
Still Brett Kelver. Still
Not
waiting for
not
raised
seeing any
hands.
not seeing any raised hands right now.
All right, I'm still Jacob Sherman as well. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application?
Again, no hands.
No one
right now.
online, and I have no yellow cards. Do we have anyone who wishes to offer neutral testimony to the application?
Not seeing any hands raised. No.
Give it the awkward 15-second count. You know, I haven't watched Jeopardy in a long time, and that's what just popped into my head, the theme song. Great. Does any member of the Planning Commission have questions regarding the testimony received to this point, either with our yellow cards or testimony and comments we've received via email? All right. Well, the public testimony portion of the hearing on the request regarding the development of Bowman-Brae Park, file CSU-2023-003 is now closed. Is the commission ready for discussion? Vice Chair Freeman, I'm going to take your nod and maybe ask if you want to lead off on the conversation.
Sure, thanks, Chair Sherman. Just initially want to say that I've received the written testimony that was submitted by the residents. Thank you for those voices that we can hear those concerns. I think staff and have addressed are aware that there are concerns about parking and the tricky parking situation unique to this park. I think everyone is happy that the city is moving forward with developing the park. I don't have any specific concerns, but I'm happy this is moving forward.
Just maybe staying in the digital world, Commissioner Losfeld, anything you'd like to say?
I'm really looking forward to seeing this one completed. I just want to echo comments and express some appreciation for the intentional outreach to community and to improve this area. I appreciate the presentation this evening. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Commissioner Ert, no feedback?
Appreciate all the work.
Great.
Yeah.
Mr. Carpenter?
I actually, real quickly, so yeah, I echo everyone's sentiments and think this is great. It did seem like some of the concerns around parking were primarily could be addressed to some degree with signage, and I just want to understand the extent to which we're able, or the Parks and Rec Board or committee is able to install the signage necessary to mitigate some of those parking concerns. And is that within the scope of the park, or does that become a question for a different body?
Probably a question, I would say probably less outside the scope of our conversation and more for probably the city traffic engineer to take up as the project moves forward and community conversation engagement continues. Would you agree with that, Justin?
Yes, I would just add that the engineering, public works staff, as well as my office and the city manager are keenly aware of the issues surrounding not only this park, but Balfour Park as well. And so we're really trying to put our best foot forward and entertain all concerns and questions that are asked. We have a sign shop. We already have signs ordered and temporary signs in place now. And we anticipate working, and it's an evolution. We don't know what we're going to see 100%. I mean, we have a pretty good indicator because it's been a park for a while. There will likely be a surge of people visiting the park when it first opens. We have ribbon cutting, and then it'll calm down a little bit. And we're committed to working with the public to installing the right signage to direct people and educate the public and where to go and where not to go.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks.
Yeah, good question, though. I mean, I do think that, with the city as the steward of the right-of-way, there's a lot of flexibility in how that right-of-way is managed. And, I think personally that any potential negative impacts on the parking access management, the city has tools to be able to manage those, and it sounds like community members are engaged, staff are engaged with those community members, and I'm sure if and when issues come up, they can be managed. So appreciate you raising that, because I do know we received some comments and questions there. And I also want to, I think, personally recognize that having, before moving to Milwaukie, I lived in Portland directly across the street from a park with a playground. And we had soccer games and all sorts of things. And so I, have personally experienced some of that. And I think what nothing against the city of Portland, but I think what differentiates us in our smaller community that we live in is we have a very responsive staff where you can get in touch with people and deal with some of those issues. So, Commissioner Carpenter, any comments or feedback from you?
Again, nice work, staff. Appreciate all your hard work on this. So.
Yeah, I think maybe in closing, I'll agree as well. Want to thank staff again for the work that they've done. Want to also recognize, I think as was mentioned in the presentation, this kind of portion of the city being park deficient. And yes, it's been there as kind of a grassy field for a while, but generally in the city, we're actually park deficient citywide in terms of when you compare the acres of park space per capita to other cities. We're short on park space, and knowing that for community members in the area, and my mom actually lives not far from here, or from Bowman-Brae, you can't really walk to North Clackamas Park. And also in terms of the connection through the park, the east-west connection through the park, for kids to hopefully get to Row in a way that doesn't mean walking all the way up to Lake and going all the way down. I think there's a lot of significant benefit. And I want to thank staff as well for some of the screening and privacy and ecological kind of features that are thought of there. So I'm ready to vote in support of this, and maybe I'll just see if anyone is ready to put a motion on the floor.
I can make a motion, Chair. I just want to check staff. Brett said he was making a few changes, so if you can help me with making the motion.
Yeah, I wonder.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll make the motion. You can help me with it. So I make a motion to approve file CSU 2023-003 as amended per comments of staff.
Is that? I was going to suggest that may be sufficient. That reference may be sufficient, as presented.
As presented in the presentation. Great. So it's been motioned. Do we have a second?
Second.
So it's been seconded to approve application CSU-2023-003 as amended in the presentation tonight. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Hearing no nays, the motion passes unanimously. Give that a gavel. Appeal rights. If anyone wishes to appeal the Commission's decision to Milwaukie City Council, you must make an application stating the grounds for your appeal within 15 days of mailing the notice of decision. Please see planning staff for details. Great. Let's take a 5-minute break if we can. I think it's 8:13 now, so let's maybe reconvene at 8:18. Sound good? Great. Perfect. If any staff or members of the public want to stick around or leave, feel free. We'll give everyone a break for a second.
So you didn't want to just take us home? We're so close.
That's all right. Great, we're back on air. Welcome back to the August 22nd Milwaukie Planning Commission meeting. We're on item 7.0, Planning Department and Planning Commission business updates. Any items from staff or,
Yeah,
or
I've
the
got
commission?
two
Great.
quick things for you. I wanted to let you know that the city council did vote to retire the DLC, 3-2, and so there's a second reading on September 5th. And then also I wanted to let you all know about bicycle parking because Ryan came here and we had the long discussion about bicycle parking. But since that time, and I think we alluded to this last time, there's potential changes, yet more changes coming from the state on bicycle parking. We were trying to do the bicycle parking while the other changes were being made, but now it turns out they're gonna maybe change bicycle parking. So we're gonna put a pause on that because we don't wanna waste people's time until we actually know what's being proposed. So that will come back to you once we have the final rules from the state.
Appreciate you being a good steward of our tax resources.
Yes.
And then you mentioned transportation system plan kicking off in October.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Do you have any sense of when we might get a work session or anything like that?
I do not. We're in the process right now. We kind of just figured out when we're going to have the technical committee meetings and the advisory committee meetings. So we're adjusting the project schedule based on that. So I should have that really soon, and I'll have a better sense of when we might be coming back to you all.
Great. That
Yeah.
sounds good. I was just thinking with regards to our Bowman-Brae application and just thinking about connectivity in the neighborhood, like would love as part of TSP to really make sure we're thinking about like how are we building out connectivity. And I know it's hard when when we have a built environment, but just looking, I pulled up a neighborhood map and was looking at it. It's like, man, this is kind of crazy. Yeah, what we / the county allowed to happen in the past. Okay. Anything else from other planning commissioners on that? Commissioner Loseveld, I'm trying to drag us out, see if we can maybe we'll get to 10 p.m. We don't have Commissioner Hemer here anymore to do that. So, great. And our forecast for future meetings sounds like September 26th.
I think so, yeah. And the reason we're not having anything on the 12th because obviously we're going to be moving that week, so it's going to be madness. And just from our tonight, we still haven't quite got that dialed in. We're hoping we'll get it dialed in when we move. But so then we're looking at the 26th as the next hearing, and it's a multifamily development's 13 units, and the only reason that it's coming to the Planning Commission is because it's in the Willamette River Greenway, which we also really need to be updating that code in the future. That's on our to-do list, so that things like that don't always have to come to the Planning Commission just because they're in the Willamette River Greenway.
Okay.
So that's it.
Well, maybe we want them to come to the Planning Commission. That was a wink, sorry. Great, and I anticipate you'll let us know if we're meeting here or trialing out the new building.
I hope we're going to try out the new building,
Okay.
but we'll see.
Great.
Yeah.
That sounds fun. Anything else? Good of the order, song and dance. Hearing none. I guess I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait, actually, sorry, I'm seeing a hand raised from someone, from Paul Anderson in the audience.
Sure, let's open it up. I mean, we are finished with our 2 hearings, but we could see what Mr. Anderson.
All right, Paul, allow you to talk. You should be free to talk.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We sure can.
Okay, I just had a question regarding, during the presentation, I saw they made some changes, and there is a 100%, I guess, a meeting on October 8th. Is there going to be any chance to see or review the changes before the October 8th rollout?
Thanks, Mr. Anderson. I appreciate that. I think what we heard in the presentation is that they're currently at about 75% design. I'm not sure if you're talking about Bowman-Brae or Balfour Park, and that they're working towards 100% design by which they the city plans to unveil on October 8th. I think that if you are interested, I would probably recommend reaching out to Adam Moore, who you may or may not be in contact with, and Adam would probably be the best person to help you understand what opportunity there might be to, see plans as they go from 75 to 90 to 95 to 100. Do you have Adam's phone number or contact information?
I might. I'll have to take a look.
I was just trying to see if I.
Sure.
I can
Pull it
follow
up
up
real
with you
fast.
tomorrow, Paul, and just make sure you have that. I think we got your original comment through an email to the Parks Project
Right.
email address, but I can follow up and make sure you have Adam's contact info.
And I can also, I just pulled it up here as well. If you happen to have a pen handy, it's Moore, MOOREA, as in Adam, at MilwaukeeOregon.gov. But Brett can also follow up as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no, thanks for your question. Appreciate you raising your hand and asking it.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
It's been moved.
Second.
It's been seconded. It's been thirded. It sounds like an all in favor. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. We're
Yeah, good
adjourned.
seeing you.
Thanks. Good
Night.
Thank you all.
Seeing those hands.